Travis Gafford here with Noah Whinston, continuing our conversation on Immortals. Now, it wasn't until around early December, around All-Stars time, that I believe you really had the roster come into play. Everybody started to move in together. Were there any moments initially where you had an idea like, oh, these guys are going to be really strong hitters in the LCS, or when LCS started, was it like, oh, wow,
it took us like 2.5 weeks to lose a scrim.
2.5 weeks to lose a scrim?
I don't remember the exact timing, but it took a long time for us to lose a scrim.
But certainly by day 8, I have to imagine you like laying down to go to sleep and just being like, yep, 8 days in a row, still no losses, and having a bit of a grin on your face.
I mean, of course I'm happy about it, but also it's scrims, right? Scrims. You can ask a lot of teams, and there's always the story of the team that's dominating in scrims and then doesn't show up on stage.
Right.
Nothing's guaranteed. I'm happy about winning in scrims. I'm happier when we actually win on stage.
Yeah. So LCS started about halfway through or beginning of January. Did you, again, have a lot of nervousness or anything like that going into this game?
Of course I did. I mean, these guys are, what do I call them? I like call them my esports babies, right?
Okay.
Like, I'm responsible for them. They're on my team. Like, it's my job to make sure they're taken care of. And every time they go into a game, even now, like, even at 10-0, I'm still freaking out every time they go into a game. Whether that game's against TSM or Energy or Renegades or C9, I don't care who it is, I'm still freaking out every time they go into a game.
Yeah, but I feel like, especially for the domestic talent, these aren't people who were, like, nobody ever said, like, Bjergsen and Pobelter, who's #1, or...
Well,
yeah.
I mean, they probably should have been after that Pobelter performance at MSG last year.
I mean, he picked Victor and won every game with Victor, but...
Victor's I mean, sure, Victor was pretty powerful then, right?
Yeah.
But let's also not elide the fact that, like, there is a person behind that champion.
Right.
And it's pretty easy to lose on Victor, too.
For me, the sense has been that they are maybe not, in many situations, the best player in their position in the NA LCS, but the team seems to have that kind of feeling of...
I mean, I don't want to talk about this, like, best player. What does best player in their position mean, right? Like, you stick Pobelter and Bjergsen 1v1 on a, like, magma chamber. Who's
Right.
going to win? Doesn't matter. That's not how the game works,
Yeah.
right? Best player does not mean who wins 1v1. Best player does not mean who has the most mechanical ability. Best player doesn't even mean, like, who can communicate better. It's a combination of all those things.
Sure.
And it's a combination of personality, too. Even if you're a great communicator and you're an amazing mechanical god and you, like, are a god-tier shot caller, like, high, if you're side of game, you're not the best player because you can't mesh with your teammates.
Sure.
Right? So it's not... I get frustrated by these discussions because when we talk about best player, or when LOL Esports talks about best player, or when presumably Yahoo Esports will start to talk about best player, like, you only ever see a slice of the pie.
Yeah.
And there's so much more that goes into what a good player is that, you know, is Bjergsen better than Pobelter? I don't care. I wouldn't trade it.
You know, oftentimes people don't really have a good sense of what the role is and what impact the coaching staff is having in the success of the team. From your perspective, how do you feel, you know, Dylan and the rest actually help set the tone and set the stage for the team's success?
So I think they do an amazing job setting the stage for the team's success. On other teams, I think the role of a strategic coach can be very different, right? Like, I think when people think of a strategic coach, they think of this person that's like, you will play this, and you will practice this, and this is the metagame, and you will conform to what I'm saying. And when they think of a performance coach or a nutritionist, they're like, you will eat this, and you will not go out, and you are not allowed to do this, and you have to do this. That's not how we work, right? We recognize that treating players like professional athletes, like everyone likes to talk about, means demonstrating a level of trust in them and a level of trust in their maturity level where they can make their own decisions, right? So when it's Dylan talking about what champions to pick, he doesn't say, you will pick this. He says, Adrian, what do you think is a good pick here? Hooney, what do you think is a good pick here? Let's practice all of these combinations that you think are good picks over the course of the week, and then we'll prep for LCS, we'll decide what's best, we'll have the ability to flex on stage. Like, all of these guys have huge champion pools. Like, they aren't going to delude themselves about what's viable and what's not.
Right.
You know, as much as Monte Cristo wants to say, like, Janna and Soraka aren't meta, like, we're winning with them, right? So it's the same thing for Robert, right? He doesn't say, you need to eat healthy food. We make it so that healthy food is easy for the players to choose. It's there when they're done with scrims. It's easier to eat healthy than it is to go out and get Chipotle every day, right? And so we trust the players to make mature, responsible decisions about themselves as professionals. We trust them to work out when we say you have to work out, and they do. And then eventually we have to say, okay, you have to stop working out so much because you're going to wear yourself out.
Sure, and I think that really works well when you have players who are really reasonable and open to talking about things. But what happens if somebody starts to develop an ego after maybe going undefeated for a spring split or something like that, and who's like, no, I want to play this champion. This is the only champion I want to play. Or you start to have players who aren't really open towards that open and reasonable conversation.
They don't play because they want to show off and be personally famous. They play because they want the team to win. Like, I keep bringing up examples of this. You know, Hooney is totally willing to, like, be a farm bot top if we need him to. Adrian, in, I think it was the week 3 game against Renegades, where, like, he was trying to preserve, or everyone was talking about him preserving KDA because his KDA was so high. And you see him in the middle of the team fights, and he's, like, flashing in to save teammates, not caring about his own KDA or whether he dies. Like, he's playing for the team. They're all playing for the team. They're all willing to sacrifice personal things to play for the team. And that's what makes a good player. That's what makes you the best.
You have talks, both in this interview and previously, or spoken about your philosophy and the Immortals philosophy of treating players like professional athletes. What do you really mean when you say stuff like that? What is that philosophy about?
In esports, I think there is a unique situation, because in traditional sports, right, by the time you get to the MLB or the NHL, you've spent years in youth leagues and the minors, and you've gotten the full experience about what it means to be like a professional athlete, right? Like playing in the NCAA for basketball, you might as well be a professional athlete at that point. So you have some training time to get there. You have a maturation process. You don't really have that in esports unless you came up through Challenger, and even then, that's not really a maturation process. So these are kids who, you know, never really were forced to, you know, change their behavior because they were just playing video games online, and then they never went to college, so they didn't have that traditional maturation process. So now they're kind of in this environment where they're expected to be super professional and mature when they haven't really been prepped for it. And I think the way to fix that isn't to say, we don't think you're capable of doing it, therefore we're going to tell you what to do for every second of your day. The response is, you know, college kids, NCAA athletes, minor league athletes, they all get a lot of trust put on them. And if they fulfill that trust and they fulfill that responsibility and they prove that they're able to be responsible, then they're treated like mature adults. And we do the same.
Again, I know we're only about 5-6 weeks in, but you know, eventually they might get tested, or they might find like a real rival that rises up out of the crowd. Mm-hmm. And at that point in time, maybe the team starts to tilt. Maybe they start to have internal issues. Maybe they start to have, you know, an inability to adapt to a new opponent. For you, looking at Immortals, how much of those fears do you have that the team might succumb to a situation like that?
I don't particularly have any fears on the competitive side. Like, that doesn't mean we're going to go undefeated. It doesn't mean we're better than Rox Tigers, right? Or better than SKT, or better than whoever the consensus best team out of Korea is, according to the general public. What it does mean is that there are some parts of a player's personality that are just inherent, right? There are some things that will be affected by stress, there are some things that will be affected by who you're playing against, and there are some things that won't be. From my extensive time living with the team, interacting with the team, the parts of the players' personalities that are inherent are the parts that I care the most about, which is a willingness to sacrifice personal goals for the professional and competitive goals for the entire team. It's a willingness to sacrifice, like, whatever it takes to win. And it's a willingness, importantly, to trust each other to the same extent that the organization has trusted them. And that, I think, is probably the most crucial point.
Be sure to check out part 3 of our interview with Noah Whinston as we talk about the future of Immortals.
Well, the way that we grow is we get more teams.